Mary Ann Trochman woke at 4 in the morning, as always. Not to an alarm. Their house had no electricity, but to the inner clock set by years of the same rhythm. The June air was already thick and warm, like honey running off a spoon. She rose, the wooden floorboards cooling her bare feet, and began braiding her long chestnut hair into a tight plait. In the mirror, the small, cracked, only permitted one, she saw a face she knew by heart, but never fully understood. Large brown eyes that, according to her mother, were too curious for an obedient girl. Full lips that rarely smiled, skin blanched by years under a hat and long dresses. "Mary, cows don't milk themselves." Her mother's voice cut through two walls and the creaking stairs. "Coming, Mama," she answered, tightening a black apron over her blue dress. Downstairs, 7 younger siblings were already waiting, from 14-year-old Ruth to 3-year-old Amos, who was nodding off over his bowl of oatmeal. Her father, Abraham, sat at the head of the table reading a German Bible by kerosene lamplight. He did not look up when she entered, but Mary Ann knew he missed nothing. "After milking, you'll go to the miller's," he said, turning a page. "Sister Hannah is ill. They need help with canning." "Yes, Papa," Mary Ann replied mechanically. "And take Ruth with you. It's time she learned to be useful." Ruth lifted her head, joy flashing in her eyes. Any change in the daily routine was a holiday. Mary Ann nodded and stepped into the yard, where the cows were already waiting, their heavy bodies moving in the early dim like living shadows. Milking was always her favorite chore. Not because it was easy, no. Her fingers went numb by the 20th cow, but because the barn was empty of people. Only the warm breath of the animals, the rustle of straw, the rhythmic ping of milk on the pail. Here she could think. And she thought about how in 4 months she would turn 19, and how Reverend Levy had twice hinted to her father about Jakob Stoltzfus, a young farmer from a neighboring community who was looking for a wife. Jakob was a good fellow, hard-working, devout, with a solid farm, an ideal match. But whenever Mary Ann tried to picture herself as his wife, bearing him child after child, each year becoming a more tired copy of her mother, something in her chest tightened so hard it was difficult to breathe. "Mary," she startled. Ruth stood in the barn doorway, already dressed and ready to go. "Are you crying?" the younger sister asked, squinting in the half-light. "No, Bessie swatted me in the face with her tail," Mary Ann lied, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Ruth didn't believe it. She never believed Mary Ann's lies, but she didn't press. Instead, she took her sister's hand and squeezed. "One day we'll go to the ocean," she whispered, "like in that book you read to me in secret. Remember?" Mary Ann remembered. 2 years earlier, she had found a book by the roadside, Mona of the Islands, half-ruined, but readable. She and Ruth had read it together in the barn by candlelight because such books were forbidden. Secular, dangerous, full of a world that wasn't for them. "The ocean is very far, Ruthie, and there's a lot of work here." "But you want to see it, don't you?" Ruth looked at her so piercingly, so seriously, that Mary Ann had to turn away. "Wanting is a sin when God has already set your path." "You talk like Papa, but you think differently. I can tell." The road to the millers ran past the English part of town, as the Amish called everything outside their community. Mary Ann drove the buggy, and Ruth sat beside her, watching cars flash by, leaving the smell of gasoline and rubber. "Look, Mary, in that car, there's a girl just like you, only in jeans." "Don't point. It's rude." "But I'm curious, how do they live? They don't have horses, no church, no. They have other churches, and they work too, just differently. Would you like to try it, for even one day?" Mary Ann didn't have time to answer. Something cracked under the buggy, sharp, loud, and the carriage dropped to one side. The horse neighed and jerked. Ruth cried out and grabbed the edge of the seat. "Easy, easy, boy." Mary Ann pulled the reins to calm him. "It's all right." But it wasn't all right. The right wheel had split. The spokes had flown apart. They were stranded on the shoulder, about a kilometer from the nearest Amish house, roughly 2/3 of a mile. "What will we do?" Ruth was near panic. I'm going to see if there's anything I can do. You stay with the horse. Mary Ann jumped down and bent to inspect the damage. The wheel was hopelessly broken. They needed help. Then she heard an engine approach and stop behind them. Excuse me, you in some trouble? The voice was male, young, with the local lilt. Mary Ann straightened slowly and turned. A guy of about 20 stood there in worn jeans and a gray t-shirt that clung to him in the heat. Dark curly hair, tan skin, hands black with grease and motor oil. His old pickup still ticked as it cooled. The wheel broke, Mary Ann said, surprising herself by not looking away. I see, he came closer, crouched by the buggy. Well, that's a mess. You won't fix this on the road. You need a new wheel, or at least a smithy. I know, her voice came out colder than she intended. She was used to English folks either ignoring Amish or staring as if at a sideshow. But this guy looked differently. He looked at her like a person with a problem that could be solved. Listen, I've got a shop about 2 kilometers from here, about 1.25 miles. I can tow your buggy there, fix the wheel. It'll take an hour, 2 at most. Mary Ann hesitated. The rules were clear, minimal contact with the English, especially for unmarried girls, especially alone. I can't accept your help for free. I'm not asking for money, he smiled, and something in that smile was so honest that warmth spread through her chest. Just help me out some other time if I'm the one in a jam. That's how neighbors do it, right? Ruth peeked from the buggy, eyes wide with surprise. Mary, his hands are completely black with grease. He's definitely a mechanic. The young man laughed. Guilty. Luke Harper, local auto mechanic. And yes, my trade leaves traces. Mary Ann Trochtman, she said, unexpectedly offering her hand, breaking another unspoken rule. When their hands touched his warm, work roughened. Hers clean but calloused from milking, Mary Ann felt a jolt. She snatched her hand back, heat flooding her cheeks. And your hands smell like flour and milk, Luke said easily. Looks like both of us do something useful with our hands every day. For some reason, that line hung in the air longer than it should have. In the weeks that followed, Mary Ann tried to forget that meeting. She worked harder, prayed longer, tried to be more obedient. But every night, lying in the dark, she heard his voice. Looks like both of us do something useful with our hands every day. Why wouldn't that line let her go? Why did his face haunt her while she baked bread, stitched shirts for her brothers, sang psalms on Sunday? Then July came, and with it the decision she had feared all her life. After Sunday service, Reverend Levy asked Mary Ann's parents to stay. She stood in the churchyard with the other girls, but caught fragments through the open window. Already 18, time to give her Rumspringa. Dangerous these days. You've seen how many young never come back. But tradition is tradition. Otherwise, she never truly chooses. Mary Ann's heart pounded so loudly, she was sure everyone could hear it. Rumspringa. The running around time. A period when young Amish were allowed to sample the world beyond their community before taking baptism and committing to live by the Ordnung forever. For most, it was a formality, a few parties, a few forbidden things, and then a return to the usual life. But Mary Ann understood. For her, it would be different. That evening, when they returned home, her father called her into his study. Her mother stood by the window, face unreadable, hands trembling as they twisted the edge of her apron. Sit, daughter, Abraham indicated the chair across from him. Mary Ann sat straight-backed, hands folded in her lap. You know what Rumspringa is? Yes, Papa. Reverend Levy believes it's time for you to take it. Your mother and I, we have prayed long about this, and we have decided to allow it. The silence was so thick Mary Ann could hear the clock ticking on the wall. You'll be permitted to live in an apartment in Lancaster with other girls on Rumspringa. You may wear English clothes, use a phone, work at an English place. It will last 6 months. After that, you must choose. Either you take baptism and remain with us forever, or... He didn't finish. No need. Mary Ann knew what or meant. excommunication, shunning. She would become dead to her family, to everyone she had ever known. I understand, Papa. No, his voice was hard, almost angry. You don't understand. You think the world beyond those trees is freedom, adventure, something better. It is only lack, emptiness, pain. I've seen it many times. The young go, and their faces change. They lose the light. They lose peace. Abraham, her mother finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. Don't frighten her. She has the right to choose. He turned to his wife, and in his eyes, Mary Ann saw something she had never seen before. Pain, fear, and if she doesn't return, Rebecca, how will we live, knowing our firstborn daughter? Then we will pray. Her mother came to Mary Ann and laid both hands on her shoulders. But we cannot hold her by force. God gave people free will. We must do the same. Mary Ann looked at her mother, the woman who had borne 8 children, worked from dawn to dusk, whose face was lined with worry, but whose eyes could still be tender. And suddenly she understood. Her mother had once had a choice too, and she had chosen to stay. "Mama," Mary Ann whispered, "did you ever regret it?" Rebecca didn't answer right away. She looked at her daughter for a long time, weighing each word. "I have regretted what I do not know. I have never regretted what I have. That is the difference you must learn for yourself." A week later, Mary Ann climbed into a hired van with 2 suitcases of old clothes and $100 in her pocket, bound for Lancaster. Ruth cried, hugging her so tightly it hurt to breathe. "Promise you'll come back," Ruth sobbed. "Promise." "I can't promise what I don't know, Ruthie." "Then promise you'll write to me, only me, in secret, that I can promise." The younger children stood in a row, not fully understanding what was happening. Her father didn't come to see her off, he was in the fields. Mary Ann knew he stayed away on purpose. He couldn't watch her go. Her mother stood on the porch, a dark silhouette against the bright morning sky. "May God keep you, daughter, and may you find what you're seeking." The van pulled away, and Mary Ann watched the farm grow smaller and smaller until it became a speck on the horizon, and then it was gone. The apartment in Lancaster was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building. 3 rooms, a shared kitchen, 1 bathroom for 4 girls. When Mary Ann stepped inside, she smelled something completely alien chemical, sweet, suffocating. "It's air freshener," chirped Sarah, one of her new roommates, a girl from another Amish community. "They sell it at the supermarket. You can pick any scent: lavender, vanilla, even new car smell." Mary Ann didn't know what to say. Who would want their apartment to smell like a car? The next days were a chaos of new sensations. The first shower with hot water running as long as she wished. The first time she flipped a switch and light appeared instantly, no kerosene, no matches. The first time she saw herself full length in a big mirror. Then came the day to buy English clothes. Sarah took her to the mall, a huge building full of stores, people, noise. Mary Ann could barely breathe from the sheer volume of everything. So many things, so many colors, so much choice. "Try these." Sarah tossed her a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. In the fitting room, Mary Ann undressed, taking off her long blue dress, black apron, white prayer cap. Standing there in white underwear, hand sewn by her mother, she felt naked, exposed. She pulled on the jeans. They hugged her hips and legs so tightly she felt every muscle move. The t-shirt, dark green with some words on it, was short, bearing her arms and collarbones. When she stepped out, Sarah whistled. "Mary, you look, Lord, you're a real beauty. Why did you hide all that under those sacks?" Mary Ann didn't answer. She stared at the girl in the mirror and didn't recognize the face looking back. Was that her? Those long legs, that narrow waist, that chest suddenly noticeable. I don't know if I can go out like this." "Of course you can. It's normal clothes. Half the world wears this." But for Mary Ann, it wasn't normal. It was like peeling off skin and showing everything underneath. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed in her new jeans and t-shirt. Sarah insisted she should get used to it gradually, listening to the city noise outside. Cars, sirens, drunken voices on the street. At home at this hour, it was quiet as a grave, only crickets and far-off dogs. She picked up the phone, a cheap basic handset with buttons bought at the market, and stared at it like an alien device. Sarah had shown her how to use it, but Mary Ann still feared pressing the keys. What if she broke something? What if she did it wrong? Then she remembered Ruth, the promise. She slowly dialed the number for the payphone near their village, the timing Sarah had given her. She rang twice, then hung up the signal. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Mary? Ruthie, it's me. Oh God, Mary, I was so worried. How are you? Where are you? What are you wearing? Are you eating English food? Hearing her sister's voice was both relief and pain. I don't know how to describe it. There's so much here, Ruthie. So much light, sound, people. I'm wearing pants. Can you imagine? Pants. Ruth laughed through tears. Reverend Levy said you're on a path of testing now, that we must pray for your soul. Papa isn't eating. Mama cries at night. She thinks I don't hear. Guilt punched Mary Ann in the chest. Tell them I'm safe, that I'm thinking of them. When are you coming back? I don't know, Ruthie. I honestly don't know. After that call, Mary Ann cried for an hour. The next day, she started looking for work. She needed money, rent, food, clothes, everything cost. The $100 she'd brought from home was melting fast. She applied at a few places, a cafe, a supermarket, a cleaning service. Everywhere they said, we'll call, and no one called. Mary Ann understood why. She was 18, with no further schooling Amish end at the 8th grade, and no experience dealing with the public. Then, walking along Main Street in her new, but cheap sneakers that pinched, she saw a familiar sign, Harper's Auto Repair. Her heart jumped. It couldn't be. She stepped closer. Through the big glass bay doors, she could see a few cars, tools, and yes, it was him. Luke Harper, in the same greasy jeans, lying under a car with only his legs and boots sticking out. Mary Ann stood there, unsure what to do. Go in, walk away. Why was her heart beating so fast? Can I help you? She turned. An older man, around 50, with a graying beard and kind eyes, stood by the shop door. I'm looking for work. Any work. The man looked her over, head to toe, but not rudely, just assessing. Can you do anything? I can clean, cook, sew, work with my hands. I'm hard-working and learn fast. I need someone to tidy the shop and do simple bookkeeping. The job's dull, the pay's minimum, but it's steady. When can you start? Mary Ann could hardly believe her luck. Now. I can start right now. The man smiled. I like your energy. Name's George Harper. This is my shop. That knucklehead under the Chevrolet is my son, Luke. Of course, his father. I'm Mary Ann Trochtman. German last name. You Amish? Mary Ann hesitated. Should she tell the truth? I'm on Rumspringa. Understanding crossed George's face. Well, I've got no prejudice, kid. If you work well, I don't care where you're from or which gods you believe in. Come on, I'll show you what to do. For the next hour, George showed her around, explained the system, what went where, which forms to fill, how to keep the client log. Luke never came out from under the car, but Mary Ann felt he knew she was there, somehow. When she finished her first day spent, dirty, smelling of motor oil, Luke finally walked up. Surprise on his face and something else. Joy? Mary Ann Trochtman, the buggy. Hi, Luke. She couldn't help smiling. I didn't recognize you. In jeans. You look different. It's called Rumspringa. I'm trying out your world. They stood in the shop's shade as the red sun slipped behind the buildings, and there was so much unsaid between them the air felt thick. So how is it so far, our scary English world? Mary Ann thought, searching for the right words. It's like, wearing shoes that aren't your size. They might be pretty, might be new, but they still pinch in odd places. And sometimes I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to wear shoes at all, you know. Luke studied her like he was trying to read a book in a hard language. I think you're allowed to wear whatever shoes you choose. The question is, what's your true size? The talk could have lasted forever, but George yelled from the office, "Luke, stop flirting with the new hire and help me with these invoices." They both flushed, but Luke smiled open, warm. "See you tomorrow, Mary Ann, and I'm glad you found us, again." The first month flew by in a whirl of new impressions. Mary Ann worked at the shop 6 days a week. On the seventh, she walked the city with Sarah, tried New Foods Pizza, was a revelation window shopped, learned to use a computer at the public library. But the biggest surprise was music. In the shop, Luke always had the radio on stations Sarah called rock or country. At first it felt like noise. In her world, music was simple, a cappella singing in church, psalms in German, rhythmic and monotone. But this was something else. Guitars roaring, drums thundering, voices singing about love, pain, freedom, loss. It was emotion in its rawest form. One day, as she cleaned near the radio, a song began. A woman's voice, both strong and cracked, sang about feeling alive. Mary Ann froze, a wet rag suspended in her hand, and for the first time in her life music entered not through her ears, but straight into her chest, her heart, her very soul. "You like Alice Mayer?" Luke appeared behind her, and she jumped. I don't know her name, but what she's singing, it's like she knows something about me I don't." Luke smiled the smile that did strange things to her breathing. "That's called resonance. When music mirrors what's in your soul. Want to hear more?" That's how it started. Luke lent her his old compact discs, music frozen in plastic. She listened at night, lying in bed, headphones on so as not to wake Sarah. She listened and cried without knowing why. Songs about people finding themselves, running, staying, loving, losing. Each song chipped another piece from the wall she had built around her heart all her life. One evening, about 2 months into Rumspringa, Luke asked, "On Saturday, there's a show downtown, local bands. Nothing big, just garage players for a few dozen people. I'm playing guitar. Want to come?" Mary Ann knew she should say no. That crossed a line. It was one thing to work together, to trade words about work. Another to go to his show, to watch him play, to be, what, a friend? Something more? But she said, "Yes, I want to come," and saw his face light up. On Saturday, Sarah helped her dress. Nothing fancy, the same jeans, but a new blouse, dark blue with long sleeves because Mary Ann still felt wrong with bare arms. Sarah even put on a little makeup mascara on her lashes, a pink gloss on her lips. "You look good," Sarah said. "This Luke, you like him, huh?" "No, I have. There's Jakob. Back home. He's waiting for me." "Jakob doesn't show up in your dreams." Mary Ann didn't know how to answer that. The show was in a small bar called Blue Moon, dark, stuffy, smelling of beer and smoke. Mary Ann had never been in such a place. She pressed against the wall near the stage, feeling completely out of place. Then Luke came out. He looked different on stage, more certain, older. The guitar in his hands was scuffed, but when he touched the strings, the sound was clean and strong. "This song is about not being sure who you are," he said into the mic. "When you feel split between two worlds, between who you're supposed to be and who you want to be." And he played. Mary Ann didn't catch every word. The music was loud and the crowd noisy, but she understood the feeling. The way his fingers trembled on the strings, the rasp that roughened his voice on the high notes, the way he closed his eyes and gave himself to the music completely. Suddenly she realized this was his prayer, his way of talking to God or the universe or himself. After the set, he came to her, drenched in sweat and adrenaline. "Well, what do you think?" Mary Ann couldn't find words. She just looked at him, and something in her chest cracked clean through. I think I think you English folks pray differently than we do, but you still pray, just in another way. Luke held her gaze so long she felt herself blush. Want to take a walk? It's stifling in here. They stepped outside, where the September air was cool and clean. They walked silently through a park where street lamps cast yellow islands on the path. "Mary Ann," Luke said at last, "I have something to tell you, and I don't know how." She stopped and turned to him. His face was serious, almost sad. Man, this will sound dumb, but since the day I saw you by that busted buggy, I can't stop thinking about you. And I know it's wrong. I know you're from another world. I know you have your rules, your God, your calling. But I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel." Mary Ann didn't breathe, couldn't breathe. "What do you feel?" Luke raised a hand and touched her cheeks so gently she might have been made of glass. "I feel like I want to know everything about you. Every thought, every fear, every dream. I want to be there when you discover something new in this world. I want to show you the ocean you dreamed of. I want to hear you laugh, truly laugh, not the way obedient girls are supposed to. I want you, Mary Ann, all of you. Your doubts, your fear, your caps, and your prayers, everything." Tears ran hot and sudden down her face. "I can't, Luke. I can't let myself feel that. Because when Rumspringa ends, I have to choose. And if I let myself feel, if I let myself, then the choice won't be honest. Then I'll betray everyone, my family, myself, even you." "Why me?" "Because I might choose you not because I want to be with you, but because I'm afraid to be without you. Do you see the difference?" Luke stood there, his hand still on her face, pain in his eyes that matched her own. "Then what do we do?" Mary Ann took his hand from her cheek, but didn't let go. She held it, his warm, calloused mechanic's hand, in both of hers. "Give me time. Let me find out who I am without my community, without my rules, without my past. And then I can make an honest choice. And if that choice isn't me, then I'll break both our hearts, but at least it will be an honest pain." The months that followed were the happiest and the hardest of Mary Ann's life. She and Luke became, what, friends? Something more? They didn't touch each other, except that one night they didn't kiss, didn't talk about the future. But they talked. For hours. About everything. Luke told her about his childhood, a father who drank and eventually left, a mother who died of cancer when he was 15, how he learned to survive on his own, how the shop became his refuge, his therapy, his prayer. Mary Ann told him about her world, a world where every day was prescribed, where every act mattered, where community was everything. The beauty of simplicity, the peace of predictability, but also the suffocation, the unspoken dreams, the feeling that you were a cog in a machine, not a person with a choice. "Were you ever truly happy there?" Luke asked one day as they sat on the shop roof watching the sunset. Mary Ann thought for a long time. "I think there are different kinds of happiness. There's the happiness of safety, knowing your place, your role, your worth. No uncertainty. And there's the happiness of discovery when any day might bring something new. I had the first. I was starving for the second without knowing it existed. And now I'm split in half. Part of me hungers for home, the smell of my mother's fresh bread, Ruthie's laughter, even Papa's sternness. And the other part is afraid to go back. Afraid that if I do, I'll suffocate." Luke took her hand. They allowed themselves that small intimacy now. "You know I want you to stay, but I also want you to be happy, even if it means losing you." Mary Ann turned to him, looking into his dark eyes. "Why are you so good to me? Most men would have tried to take advantage of the situation by now." "Because you're not an object, Mary Ann. You're a person standing at the most important crossroads of your life. I don't want to be the reason you go down the wrong road. I want to be the person who supports you, whichever road you choose." That night, for the first time, she let herself kiss him. Just a gentle brush of lips, brief, tender, like breath. But in it was more intimacy than anything she had ever felt. Then November came. and with it a storm. Mary Ann came home from work and found a note from Sarah. "Your father is here, waiting at the cafe on the corner." Her heart fell to somewhere near her stomach. Abraham, here, in the city. She found him at a small cafe, sitting by the window, stiff and out of place in his black suit and hat among people in jeans and t-shirts. A cup of coffee sat untouched before him. "Papa," she whispered, approaching. He lifted his head. There was no anger in his eyes. Something worse, disappointment so deep it had hardened into pain. "Sit, daughter." She sat, hands trembling. "Your mother asked me to come," he began, voice quiet and controlled. "She said if anyone can reach you, it is I. I wasn't sure she was right, but I came because you are my firstborn daughter, and I must try." "Try what?" "Try to understand. Try to learn why you still haven't returned, why you don't write, why your sister cries every night and your brothers ask where Mary is, why Mary has left us." Guilt spread hot and caustic in her chest. "I didn't leave them, Papa. I'm trying to understand who I am." And he finally looked her full in the face. "Have you learned, after 4 months in this place, with these people who don't know God, don't know order, don't know anything but their selfish wants?" His words hurt, but Mary Ann felt something harden inside her. "They're not bad people, Papa. Just different. They also have values, morals, a way of life. Yes, some are selfish, but some are the kindest I've met. People who help strangers, who accept those who are different, who don't judge me by my dress or my cap." "Is there someone in particular?" Abraham asked, a new note entering his voice. "Suspicion. Someone who keeps you from returning." Mary Ann hesitated. She could lie. Lying to her father's face felt impossible. "There is a young man. His name is Luke. He is kind, hardworking, honest. He never rushed me, never pushed. He just sees me, the real me. Not an obedient daughter, not a future Amish farmer's wife, not a pair of working hands. Me, Mary Ann, a person with thoughts, dreams, fears." Abraham's face grew harder with each word. "And you think to marry him, bear him children, live in this world of sin and temptation?" "I don't know what I think, Papa. I don't know. That's why I'm here to figure it out." She hadn't meant to raise her voice, but the emotion overflowed. A few customers turned and stared. Abraham breathed deep, forcing himself calm. "Mary Ann, listen to me carefully. What you feel for this boy is not love. It is intoxication with novelty, excitement at the forbidden. In a month, a year, when the novelty fades, what will remain? You will be in a world where you have no roots, where your children won't know their grandparents, where you will be forever a stranger. And if I return," her voice shook, "then what? I'll marry Jacob, who looks at me like a pedigreed mare to bear him sons. I'll raise children teaching them the same rules that have smothered me. I'll become more tired, more empty each year until I turn into a shadow." "Is your mother a shadow?" The whip crack in his voice made her flinch. "No, Mama is the strongest woman I know, but she is also the saddest. I see it in her eyes, Papa. When she thinks no one is watching, I see a woman who buried her dreams so deep she can't even remember they ever were." Abraham rapped his knuckles on the table, not hard, but enough to slosh the coffee. "You do not know what you are talking about. You are a child playing at adult games. You think freedom is happiness? Freedom is a burden, Mary Ann. It is endless choice, endless responsibility, endless loneliness. In our world, you are never alone. In our world, you always have purpose, always have support, always have a home. And if that home is a cage?" The silence between them grew so heavy, it seemed the cafe walls might buckle. At last Abraham rose. He looked older than when she had last seen him, more bent. "In 2 months your Rumspringa will officially end. Then you must appear before the community and choose. If you do not come, the choice will be made for you. And you know what that means." Shunning, Mary Ann whispered, "Yes, you will be dead to us, even to Ruth, even to your mother. We will not speak with you, eat with you, touch you. You will become a ghost." He started to go, but turned at the door. "I love you, daughter. I always have. But if you choose this world, I will be forced to love you from afar. Because our rules are not just rules. They are what holds us together. If we start to break them, we fall apart." After he left, Mary Ann sat another hour, staring at his cold, untouched coffee. That meeting broke something in her. In the weeks that followed, she was like a ghost, physically present, mentally far away. She worked mechanically, spoke in monosyllables, kept Luke at arm's length. "Mary, what's wrong?" he asked every day. "Nothing. I'm fine." But she wasn't. At night, she woke in cold sweat from nightmares where she stood at a crossroads and both roads led into a void. In one void, her family's faces fading into darkness. In the other, her own face, but it wasn't hers. It was a mask. Sarah tried to help, but how do you help someone drowning in her own thoughts? "Go back home, Mary," Sarah said one evening. "I can see this is killing you. Just go back. Take baptism. Quiet your heart." "And will you go back?" Mary Ann asked. Sarah looked away. I don't know. I haven't decided." "That's the problem. None of us knows. We're all stuck between two worlds, belonging to neither." December came, cold and snowy. Mary Ann stood at the apartment window, watching flakes dance in the streetlights. At home, the family would be gathered by the stove, Papa reading scripture, Mama sewing, the children playing simple games. Warm, plain, safe. Here, she was alone. Sarah had gone on a date, the cold seeping through poorly insulated windows, the future as foggy as the winter sky. Someone knocked. She opened the door. Luke stood there dusted with snow, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "Thought you might be cold," he said simply. Mary Ann couldn't speak. She stepped back to let him in. They sat on the floor by the radiator, drinking chocolate, saying nothing for a long time. At last, Luke whispered, "Mary, I can't watch you tear yourself apart anymore. Tell me what to do. Tell me and I'll do it. You want me to disappear. I'll disappear. You want me to go see your father and ask permission to be with you. I'll go. You want me to tell you that you should go home. I'll say it. Just stop hurting like this." Mary Ann set down her cup and turned to him, tears running freely. "I'm scared, Luke. I'm so scared, afraid to choose you and then regret it. Afraid to choose home and then suffocate. Afraid that, no matter what I choose, part of me will die. And I don't know if I can live being only half alive." Luke wrapped his arms around her tight, as if holding her scattered pieces together. "Listen to me carefully, Mary Ann Trochtman. You are the bravest person I know, not because you ran from your world, because you're honest enough to face your doubts. Most people live their whole lives never questioning what they were taught to believe. You questioned. That's not weakness, that's strength. But the question remains, what do I do?" Luke leaned back, looking into her eyes. I think you already know the answer. Deep down, you're just afraid to hear it because it means pain. Pain passes, Mary. Regret doesn't." They sat there all night, holding each other, watching the snow pile up outside like a white blanket over the world. Near dawn, Mary Ann whispered, "I can't go back. I know it now. I can't live in a world where my thoughts are sin, my dreams are betrayal, my true self must be buried under layers of obedience. I will try, and if it means losing my family, that's the greatest price I'll ever pay. But paying the price of my own self is a price I cannot afford." Luke kissed her forehead softly, like a blessing. "Then I'll be here, every step, I promise." January brought the day Mary Ann had dreaded and awaited the day she had to appear before the community and choose. She woke at 5 in the morning, as in childhood. Luke slept on the floor beside the bed. They still had not made love. Mary Ann wasn't ready to cross that last line, and he respected it, covered with an old blanket. She watched his calm face and tried to picture a whole life with this person beside her. It was frightening, and it felt right. She put on her Amish clothes for the last time. Blue dress, black apron, white cap. In the mirror, she saw the girl she had been 6 months earlier, but her eyes were different. There was something new in them: knowledge, pain, strength. Ready, Luke rubbed his eyes awake. I'll never be ready, but it's time. They drove to the community in silence, his old car rattling over snowy roads. When the familiar houses and fields appeared, Mary Ann felt her throat tighten. Stop here, she said, a kilometer before the church. I'll walk the rest. Mary, please, Luke, this is something I have to do alone. He nodded. She stepped out and walked the last stretch. Snow squeaked under her boots, the sound of her whole life. When the church came into view, a simple wooden building with no adornment, not even a cross, her heart beat so loudly it seemed the world could hear. People were already gathering inside. She saw familiar shapes: neighbors, childhood friends, the elders. Everyone was there. When she entered, all turned. The silence was deafening. Her family sat in the front row. Abraham stone-faced, Rebecca tears on her cheeks, Ruth eyes full of hope and fear. The younger children watched, not grasping the weight of the moment. Reverend Levy stood at the pulpit. He did not smile. Mary Ann Trochtman, you have returned. Yes, Reverend. You have had 6 months of Rumspringa to learn the English world and decide. Today is the day of that decision. Before God and this community, are you ready to answer? I am. Then come forward, child. She walked forward, legs heavy as lead. She faced the congregation. Mary Ann Trochtman, do you accept baptism into this church? Do you vow to live by the Ordnung to the end of your days? Do you renounce the sinful world and all its temptations? Do you choose God, this community, this way of life as yours and yours alone? Each question struck like a hammer. Mary Ann took a deep breath. The last 6 months flashed through her mind: the first taste of pizza, the first song that made her cry, the first kiss, the first feeling that she was a person and not just a mechanism's part. And also her mother's face, Ruth's laughter, even her father's stern love. Reverend Levy, community, my family. Her voice trembled but was clear. I did not come today to accept baptism. The room buzzed like a shaken hive. Rebecca wept aloud. Ruth stood, and someone tugged her back down. I came to speak the truth. I have lived 6 months in another world. I saw things that changed me forever. I learned that kindness exists beyond our community, that morality does not require hats and buggies, that asking questions is not a sin but a gift, that women can be more than wives and mothers, they can be dreamers, makers, thinkers. That is blasphemy, someone shouted from the back. Reverend Levy raised a hand for silence. Continue, child. Mary Ann turned to her father. Papa, you said freedom is a burden. You were right. It is heavy. It is frightening. Each day I wake not knowing if I'm choosing well. But do you know what I learned? That uncertainty, that fear, they mean I am alive. Truly alive. Not existing. Not functioning. Living. Abraham finally looked at her. Pain so deep filled his eyes that Mary Ann could barely breathe. I do not reject God, she went on. I do not reject faith. I am not saying your way of life is wrong. For many of you, it is perfect. It brings peace, structure, community. But for me, it has become a cage. If I stay, I will become a shadow. A beautiful, obedient shadow, but a shadow. She turned to Ruth, who cried silently. Ruthie, my sweet sister, you told me once we would go to the ocean. I promise you, when you turn 18, when your Rumspringa comes, I will be waiting. If you choose to leave, I'll be there. If you choose to stay, I will love you from a distance, but I will love you always. Then to all, I know the rules. I know my decision means shunning. It means you cannot speak with me, eat with me, acknowledge my existence. I ask you, do not do it to punish me. Do it because the rules hold you together. I understand. I bear no grudge. She took one last breath. I choose to go. I choose the unknown over the predictable. I choose fear over numbness. I choose to live truthfully, even if it means living with the pain of loss. Reverend Levy's face was grim. Mary Ann Trochtman, your decision is heard. From this moment, you are excommunicated from this community. You are no longer daughter, nor sister, nor part. You are a ghost. May God have mercy on your soul. The congregation began a psalm, a funeral psalm. Mary Ann stood and listened as the voices rose and merged into a wall of sound that pushed her away. She started down the aisle. Abraham did not look at her, but as she passed, he whispered so softly only she could hear, "Be happy, child, be happy." Rebecca rose, took a step toward her, and stopped. The rules. Her face was torn with pain. Then Ruth broke. She ran to Mary Ann and hugged her so tightly bones might crack. "I love you," she sobbed. "I always will. Always." "Ruth, sit down," the Reverend's voice snapped. But Ruth didn't let go. "I'll come to you," she whispered in Mary Ann's ear. "When I turn 18, I promise, I'll come." At last, they pulled her back. Mary Ann stepped into the cold January air, tears freezing on her cheeks. Luke waited by the road. When he saw her, he got out and opened his arms. She ran to him, fell into him, and finally let herself cry completely. Cry for all she had lost. For a father who would never again say good morning. For a mother whose hands she would no longer feel. For Ruth, whose laughter would become only a memory. And also cry with relief, with freedom, with the honesty of choice. "I've got you," Luke murmured, stroking her hair. "I'm with you." 1 year later, Mary Ann Trochtman stood by the window of the small apartment she and Luke rented together separate bedrooms. She still wasn't ready for full intimacy, and he respected that. In her hands was a letter from Ruth, carried through a chain of go-betweens. "Dear Mary, I am 16 now. 2 more years and I will come. I promise. Mama still cries sometimes. Papa never says your name, but I saw him look at your old bed when he thought no one was watching. I whisper your name every night, in my prayers, not because you are dead, because you are the most alive person I know. I love you. Always. Your Ruth." Mary Ann folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the others from Ruth. Good news. Luke came in from the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. "Ruthie still remembers, still waits." "And you? Are you still waiting?" Mary Ann turned to him. The year had changed her thinner, with dark circles under her eyes from 2 jobs, the shop by day, a cleaning shift in an office at night. But there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I wait for the day the pain is smaller, when I can think of Mama without crying, when I can eat my mother's bread without guilt." "Do you regret it?" She didn't answer immediately. She watched the steam above her cup. "I regret what I lost. I don't regret who I've become," she said. "Those are different things." He nodded. "Then let's do something plain and honest. This weekend we'll go to the ocean. You wanted to see it. No big plan. We'll just go. I have a morning shift on Sunday. I'll cover it. George can handle the shop. We'll leave at dawn Saturday, come back that night." She gave a small smile. "Okay." They stood in the wind. Waves came one after another. The water was cold, the sand wet and heavy. Almost no one else was there. "That's all it is," Mary Ann said. "Big water, noise, and salt in your mouth." Disappointed. "No, I'm just taking it as it is. It's real." She bent, filled a small bottle with seawater, and screwed the cap tight. "For Ruth," she explained, "so she knows it's not a fairy tale." They sat without speaking. When the sun went down, she leaned her shoulder against him. "You know," she said, "sometimes I feel like I'm still halfway, but the road is mine now." "Yours," he said. In spring, she took the General Educational Development High School Equivalency exam. Not on the first try, but she passed. She found a daytime job at the library, first cleaning, then helping at the front desk. In the evenings, she kept the shop books and managed parts. The money covered rent, food, and a little savings. Letters from Ruth came irregularly, but they came. Each one held simple facts, the younger ones growing, grandfather getting sick and recovering, a dress she had sewn herself. No wasted words. The latest read, I am 17. I am holding on. I am waiting. There were no letters from her parents. She grew used to the silence. It stopped cutting and simply was. In summer, Mary Ann cut off her braid. Not as a gesture of defiance, she was tired of the wait. She mailed the hair to a salon that collected it for wigs for cancer patients. She came home, looked in the mirror, and didn't fear the new face. Like it? Luke asked. Yes, it's comfortable. He laughed. The best review in the world. One evening in autumn, she set 2 envelopes on the table. What's this? He asked. A deposit for accounting courses and the first payment on a small service van for the shop. You said we lack mobile calls to customers. I ran the numbers. It pays for itself in about 7 months. You sure? Yes, I want to do not just what I can, but what is right. And this is right. He looked at her a long time. Then he simply said, I'm proud. In winter, she held the bottle of seawater again. She took it from the drawer and wiped it with a cloth. A scratch marred the cap. She smiled. One more year, she said aloud, and I'll give it to Ruth. Luke set 2 mugs of tea beside her. And if she doesn't come, then I'll keep it anyway. That's an answer too. Hers, not mine. He nodded. And you? Do you still know regrets? He echoed his old question. She met his eyes. I regret hurting others. I don't regret the truth. That's what I live on. They sat quietly. No music. No big words. Outside, snow fell steady and drama-less. Mary Ann pressed her palm to the warm kettle and said, Tomorrow morning at the shop, I'll check the brake pad order. At the library, I'll file new patron cards. In the evening, homemade pizza. Nothing special, but it's my day. He smiled. Ours. Ours, she agreed. She put the bottle back in the drawer, turned off the kitchen light, and went to bed. No grand gesture, no final verdict, just to keep living. Hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. The next story will be even more intense. But if you are under 18, don't even think about clicking next.